Well, hey there, YouTube. Welcome back to Road to Ribtown. This time we're trying something totally new. The last meal ribs from AmazingRibs.com. Now, the first part of this recipe calls for salting the ribs. Of course, you want to remove the membrane first. You can watch episode 1, 2, or 3 to see how that's done. We're using some coarse kosher salt. They recommend about a half a tablespoon for a pound of meat. You can use a little more, a little less, depending on what you like. But the salt will break down and help retain the flavor and the moisture in the meat. Because there's no salt in the rub, we're applying it early. It'll sit on these ribs wrapped up in the fridge for about an hour or two. So the next step for us while those ribs are sitting away is to make our rub. We're going to need 3/4 cup dark brown sugar, 3/4 cup white sugar, half a cup of garlic powder, half a cup of paprika, 2 tablespoons of ground black pepper, 2 tablespoons of onion powder, 2 tablespoons of ground ginger, and 2 teaspoons of rosemary powder. Now, since rosemary powder is kind of hard to come by, just take some dried rosemary, put it in your coffee grinder, grind it up real fine, and voila, rosemary powder. Now take all your ingredients, throw them in a big old bowl, and whisk them up real well. When you're done, you'll have what Amazing Ribs calls Memphis dust. Now for starting our smoker, we're using a full chimney. That's about 5 pounds of Kingsford Blue charcoal. Now I know a lot of folks don't clean their smokers, and that's okay, but I'd recommend cleaning the inside of the dome periodically, because soot and ash will build up in there after a couple smokes. If you're not careful, putting that lid down will loosen all that up, and it'll fall all over the ribs or chicken or whatever else you're cooking. As usual, for a rib cook, we're filling the water pan about 3/4 full. Now, once those coals in that chimney are white hot, we're going to throw them on the smoker. Tossing in some hickory for smoke today, and we're putting some unlit coals on top of the lit coals, along with another chunk of hickory on top of those unlit coals, so that smoke will continue to roll throughout the cook. Alright, so the ribs have had about 2 hours to sit in the fridge wrapped up in salt. So now it's time to apply the rub that we made, this Memphis dust rub. Like applying any kind of rub, you want to be pretty liberal with it. Don't go crazy and overboard, you can't even tell that it's a piece of meat any longer. Put a pretty good thick layer on there. Be sure to get all the sides and the corners and underneath and all that good stuff. Now one thing you do once you got that rub on is go ahead and put on a thin layer of vegetable oil on the ribs right over top of the rub. You could do it before the rub, I assume. I don't think it really matters that much, but the recipe says you should do it after the rub is applied. Put a thin layer of vegetable oil on. I think this has to do with kind of like helping it crisp up a little bit, and it might help to keep the rub adhering to the rib, although it seems kind of odd you're putting it on afterwards. I don't know. Just follow the recipe. It turns out well, trust me. Not long ago I picked up a Weber rib rack. Figured I'd try it out today, but I just wasn't happy. In order to fit 2 full racks on an 18.5-inch smoker, you're going to need to bend the ribs just slightly. Okay, so it's time to put the ribs on. Helping me out today is a wireless thermometer made by Ivation. It is the same model as the Maverick ET732. It's not a very expensive item. You can pick it up for about 50 bucks at Amazon. I highly recommend it. Once I had the ribs put on there, the thermometer was reading about 250. And I adjusted the vents down and got her around 225 where I wanted her, and left her alone for a couple hours. Alright, so the ribs have been on here about 3 hours. Truth be told, I went and ran an errand or two. When I got back, the pit temp was around 209 degrees. Much lower than the 225 I was shooting for. I went ahead and did a bend test. I wasn't getting really any break in the rib, but you can see the bone is starting to show through. That would clue to me that they were probably done, but although I wasn't seeing a break in the ribs, I decided to leave them on there a little bit longer, and because the pin temp had sunk so low, not so low, but low enough where it needed to, a jump, I decided to invert the door using a large wrench to crack it open at the bottom. This is an easy way to bring the temperature of your Weber Smoky Mountain up relatively quickly. Now they've been on there an additional, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes. I went ahead and took a look at them. As you can see, the bone is coming out a little bit further. Stuck my thermometer in there. They were sitting around 191 degrees, which is an indication that they are done. I went ahead and did the bend break test to see if there was a clear indication that they were done. It's really hard to see there. It's not quite obvious, but given the temperature and how the bone was protruding, I was pretty certain that they were done. Now in episode 2 and episode 3, I was using a different barbecue sauce, but today I am using Sticky Fingers Carolina Sweet. I'm just applying a base coat to the top of the ribs. I'm going to go ahead and take apart the smoker, removing the center section and taking the top rack and putting it over top of the coals. It'll fit on there just perfectly. It turns your Weber Smoky Mountain cooker into a Smoky Joe, pretty much. I'm taking these ribs and I'm putting the meat side down, right on top of that grate, right over top of those hot coals. Letting that barbecue sauce sear over those coals, and I'm putting a layer of that Carolina Sticky Sweet on the underside or back side of the ribs. And I'm putting these on there for about 30 seconds, flipping them over and giving them 30 seconds on the opposite side. Not too long to burn the sugars, but enough to give it a nice charcoal grilled flavor. And it's under the recommendation of the website, AmazingRibs.com, and I frankly really like it. I think it produces a really great extra flavor to the ribs. Now I don't know if I missed something, but I don't remember reading anything about a rest period for this method of cooking baby back ribs. Certainly cooking a 2-2-1 method baby backs or a 3-2-1 on St. Louis, most folks recommend giving your ribs about a 15-minute window to rest. With these, I didn't even bother. Just went ahead and got the electric knife out, cut them right up. And I like using an electric knife because it gives a clean, even cut. That's all. All in all, I think this recipe is fantastic. Anybody who watched this video who hasn't tried this method should give it a whirl. Although my wife is a huge fan of my 2-2-1 method because she likes ribs when they come flying off the bone, this is the way you're supposed to do ribs. And I recommend anybody who hasn't tried this to try it out. I'd like in the near future to tweak the recipe a little bit and really make it my own. But I gotta say, this is a really good one. I mean, look at this rib. It's got a good smoke ring, nice little charcoal singe to it. The rub is really a good recipe. Look at that bite mark. Taste, tenderness, and appearance. I think I got an A. Anyways, it's time to eat. Thanks for watching, y'all.
Are they in Atlanta?
Pretty good.